Hi, I'm Laura Davis, your host of Hire Me Maybe, discussing the journeys of influential figures within the manufacturing and engineering industries. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Kris Bowling, who is the Managing Director of Van Leeuwen Limited. Hi, Kris, and thank you so much for joining us this morning on Hire Me Maybe. So I just wanted to start the conversation really by talking about how we met. It was a very long time ago, wasn't it? I think when we both had a little less grey hair.
Me, definitely. Yeah.
I hide mine. I hide it very well. Yeah. It was back in the old building, wasn't it? Probably about 15 years ago, something like that. It must be, mustn't it?
Very well be, yeah. I mean, it was 2009 when I moved from Ireland back to the UK. So, yeah, it will have been.
Yes. No, I mean, yeah.
As a mere sales manager at that location, yeah.
I was going to say, it was all telesales, wasn't it, in those days? And it was, and I think, I started off on the temp desk, so it would have been sort of initial conversations from that through to kind of where we are today. But no, and in terms of, sort of your journey, that's what today's going to be about.
Okay.
So obviously we know each other because we've worked together. For me to support you to place people, obviously years ago, and then more recently we've got back in contact, haven't we, over the last couple of years, something like that, I would say.
Yeah.
And we've done some good things together, I think, haven't we? So there's been a couple of quite senior leaders that we've put in, one recently and one a year ago, and some people throughout other parts of the business, sales and HR. So. It has been great reconnecting and getting some good into your business. So tell me about your career. You touched on Ireland. So how did it all begin for you?
Nearly 30 years ago, I just finished my studies in electrical and mechanical engineering. I'd done some vacational work in between the summer holidays while I was doing my schooling in a non-destructive testing company, actually where my mum worked and actually where my dad had worked hundreds of years before. So I did some quality assurance work there, so I got an understanding of QA procedures, etc., alongside my electrical and mechanical engineering qualification. And then a role came up at a company quite close to where I lived. It was Wheeler Tubes back in the day for a quality assurance assistant. And I applied for the role and got the role. Trying to understand why I had got the role, so I spoke to the manager at the time, and it's because I was in the Territorial Army at the time, and he was an ex-naval officer. So he thought he chose me out of the bunch because I'd had the courage and endeavour to work alongside work inside the military system, and he thought I'd be a little bit more disciplined and little did he know, and hardworking. So it was kind of a chance that I fell into the tube world.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and from then. I was the quality assurance assistant on £6,000 per annum. So it was before minimum wages and things like that. So I was the lowest paid in the Wheeler Tube company.
You started right at the bottom.
I very much did, yeah. So I started in that role. Using my engineering qualifications a little bit, it supported my technical knowledge of the products and applications. So I was talking to customers directly about maybe some of the challenges they were having with our products.
Yeah.
And then it was goods inwards as well. So I was checking the material on the way in. The yard at Bury was outside, so I was checking material in all sorts of different climates, which was fun, trying to write on pieces of paper the lengths and dimensional checks of material when it's raining with pencils. Fun times.
Back in the day.
Yeah. But then a vacancy became available for the chief inspector. I applied, got the role. So was quite senior in quality from the age of 19.
Right.
So it was, I wasn't quite at management level, but I was one step above on the ladder already at a very early stage. Again, joined the organisation, developed quite a lot over a 4-year period, and then an opportunity came up in sales. I got quite friendly with a couple of the sales guys. We used to go out and have a drink, and I thought I'd like to try my hand. Moved in and really found that was my forte. At first, I relied heavily on my technical knowledge. But then realised quite quickly I had the gift of the gab also. So found the sales world quite acceptable as a future home for me.
You can't train a sales ability and a kind of like you say, a gift for the gab, and he's got that innate ability to be able to have a conversation with people and get people to open up to them. I don't believe you can train that. You've either got it or you haven't, and that's fantastic that you've used your technical knowledge to obviously fuel that your career forward.
And it helped quite a bit, and then from there, my career developed quite quickly. I was never in the same role for over 3 years from that point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I became specialist sales. So we decided to venture into white metals, as they were calling it, because by that time we were owned by Marmon Keystone, an American steel tube distributor. So I started selling stainless steel. So it was clearly known as bright and shiny stainless steel in the UK, but white metals in the American market. Yeah. We used to receive a lot of inquiries, and I decided, let's see if I can do some trading. So I started to win a few orders. Just at the time, the managing director, Tony Newman, had decided we should start diversifying into different materials and start looking at stock holding a certain stainless steel tubular product. So again, quite accidental. My head was above the parapet, and before you know it, we were driving to a mill in France and looking at putting stocks in, and I was responsible for developing the sales of that product. Then I became an external sales guy. Had a 1-year career break for my time with the Territorial Army. I got mobilised for a tour of Iraq. So I spent 7 months in Iraq, which was a little bit different from selling steel tubes. But a change is as good as a rest. Came back from there, still as an external salesperson, responsible then for the region of Ireland, as well as the north of England. Then we decided to open an sales office first in Ireland, so I was chosen as the manager, relocated, lived over there for 2 years, built up quite a sales unit over there, ready for us then to put in a warehousing facility. Okay. I then got the opportunity to come back to the UK to be where we met Laura, into Brierley Hill as the regional sales manager. Sorry?
It's a beautiful office.
Oh yeah. It's a very old steel world office. So I looked after half of the UK and Ireland at that time as a regional sales manager. Then a few years later, I expanded. It was mainly on the industry customer side. Yeah. Then I expanded and started to cover energy sales, built up my team. Then I took over procurement for all stock products for the UK. So it was progressing every 2 or 3 years, just as I was getting to the top of my game almost, looking for other opportunities. Yeah. The managing director at the time, Jeff Blakey, gave me those opportunities and expanded the role. To the point where I then became commercial manager for the whole of the UK and Ireland. Yeah. And leading up very shortly after that to becoming managing director. I'd like to point out, before I was 40.
I was going to say,
it was literally 1 month before I was 40, but I was still in my 30s when I became managing director.
That's a claim to fame, surely. That's
And then in I took over at a time of turmoil in the steel tube industry, specifically for the oil and gas sector. Yeah. So we were downsizing in line with the size of the market. And we were finding it very difficult to be profitable during that period of time. but through lots of developments and adjustments to our business, we got to a nice profitable level again from 2018 onwards. Then in end of 2019, Van Leeuwen bought Ventler Distribution.
Yeah.
International, so the group bought the group. In the UK, Ventler Distribution were a competitor of Van Leeuwen, so it was two similar sized companies selling similar products, but very to very different markets. And actually, the strengths of one organisation were counteracted the weaknesses of the other. So it was a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
So when we came together, I became commercial director. I still had the energy to run around and combine the two sales organisations, making two enemies friends.
Yeah.
And deciding where we strategically what we were going to put our efforts into and how we were going to combine.
So you go from two businesses being competitors.
Yeah.
How did you do that? How did you go about that?
It was quite easy, if I'm honest. The cultures of both businesses were very similar. I think the directors were quite mature in their approach. We believed we would encounter a lot of challenges, but then all of a sudden, it was the end of 2019, so it was the early 2020, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And the strength of the leadership, I would say at that time, there was 4 strong directors. Going from both organisations, had 2 directors, now there was 4. So the strength of the combination of all 4 of us really helped us through that very, very tough time.
Yeah.
So it forged a union through that difficult global pandemic.
Yeah.
So locally, it really supported our coming together.
Yeah.
And then helped us build on our way out of that again together. And then the 2 organisations didn't feel like 2 organisations when we were all back in the workplace after COVID.
You felt amalgamated.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. No,
back, it's 2 years ago now, I became managing director again.
Fantastic.
So I'm a much bigger company now, so it's double the size, double the locations.
I was going to say, and you've got it, and obviously the head office. I mean, I always say to people, it's a stunning office. To be. I joke with people, in Canary Wharf, it's very much like you feel like you're somewhere like Canary Wharf, don't you, when you're walking in? And
on the Black Country Canal, just like Canary Wharf.
It feels like it, doesn't it? Because it's beautiful. You're very proud of kind of what your surroundings are, and the little pods in the sales office and things like that. I think they're really cool. And you can feel it's a nice place to be, and everyone's happy, and there's lots of activity, and it just feels, like you said, cohesive. It doesn't feel like it could ever have been 2 separate businesses now. It feels like you're united, and that's down to you and the rest of the senior leadership team to have pulled that together, isn't it? So and
the environment really does help. I mean, I'm not one for pretty things. So I was quite happy sat in the old facility, but it's really helped us to attract people to the business. Yeah, 100%. And we should take care of our human capital. We talk a lot about developing people and training and making sure that they're the right people for the future, etc., etc. But it's also the surroundings that you put around them to make it feel a better environment and more.
They're a long time at work.
Encouraging to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that people, when they walk into that building, they feel it, and they're excited to be part of something like that. So I think that's fantastic. And you've just celebrated 100 years, obviously at both the supply chain event, which very kindly invited myself and the girls to, and then you've had your Christmas do, I hear, over the last
It wasn't. It was our employee 100-year celebration. On Friday, so it was the bonfire night of the century.
Oh, there you go.
It was very good again because we are quite spread out through the country, and it was really nice to bring all the people from all the different branches together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a great fire eating lady and
Oh, wow.
lots of fire juggling and this, that, and the other, and a environmentally friendly fireworks show. So it was a light show rather than
No dog owners moaning in the background then.
Sorry?
No dog owners moaning in the
No,
background.
But yeah, but it was a great night.
Good. And I mean, that's lovely, like you say, bringing people from across the country, because when you've got people that don't see each other all the time, I mean, obviously COVID has changed the way that we work anyway, but when you have got people dotted around the country, that must be really nice, pulling people together, and seeing those relationships. Sometimes they just chat to them over the phone or over a Teams or Zoom call. So, that must be.
I think the social element's been important. If I reflect back on why I am still in this industry, it is the social element that I've enjoyed a lot over that time.
Yeah, no, and it's known for it, the industry, isn't it? Because even competitors, there's a lot of sort of collaboration, I would say within the sector.
Not with competitors. No, my compliance guy will go crazy.
It's all good. There's business for everybody, isn't there?
Things
like the Metals Expo. Obviously, you're in a room with all of your competitors, aren't you? You've got and your suppliers and service providers. There's so many different people there, and I for one think it's a fantastic environment to sort of chat to people, meet people, network. So and I made you do my panel, didn't I? So
yeah, you wrote me into that.
Wrote you into that. But I think we got the message across, and I think that moves on to sort of the next thing that I want to talk about with you, because obviously we talked about the fact that we're not getting any younger. We need to be succession planning. You've touched on it. We need to be looking at the next generation and kind of what that looks like. What have Van Leeuwen done to embrace that, and what are you continuing to do from a apprenticeship, graduate, Gen Z point of view, really?
I think we do have a graduate trainee at the moment, so looking a little bit differently to how we've attracted the younger generation in the past. So for this particular individual, he's coming, he's got his qualifications, he's hungry to do something different. And we're presenting him with a pathway to do that in the steel tube market, and he's very different from what we've brought in before. So he really does look from I suppose a formal educational sort of way outside of our usual working practices, and challenges a little bit. And he's particularly when it comes to e-commerce, etc., is helped drag us a little bit forward.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we have a few apprentices in the business, a couple in operations, and one guy in our branch in Bolton.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a different approach. It's much more from the ground upwards, going through all the different elements that we do. He has a mentor who's a young lady called Philippa at our facility in Bolton, who's been doing a great job of supporting his development, and he's making great strides as well. So we've got a couple of different avenues to bring in, attract the younger generation into the sector.
Yeah.
But actually, over the years, our age pyramid has become quite good. Yeah. So we do have groups of individuals from all the different age brackets. I'd like to still say I'm somewhere in between, but I'm getting further towards the higher end now, unfortunately.
Future-proofing your business, and it's the only way you can sit back and know that the next sort of 10, 20 years are looked after. I think I did a post recently on LinkedIn about retirement should never ever come as a surprise. You need to be planning for it, and so many businesses, that's why they end up failing, because they lose all of that knowledge, all of that experience, and they've not planned. Do you know what I mean?
It is, but it's still very difficult, even if you look and have quite mature conversations with the individuals about when what their plans are, and we've got quite a good relationship with all our managers and senior team members, and we've had those sort of conversations, and we can see the roadmap, and we have seen that roadmap for a while, but it's still not easy when you're planning.
No.
And replacing experience is becoming, it's always been a challenge, but it's becoming more and more of a challenge.
Of course, and it will do, because I think I've said this to you before about the metaphorical USB stick. You almost want all of that knowledge out of their head to pass to somebody else. But I think it's using all the technology we've got, and having those regular sort of connections with them, so that knowledge is gradually being passed on, isn't it? And it sounds like you're making strides to do that. And obviously you've talked about your journey, we've talked about apprentices and bringing the next generation on. So is there anyone in your career that you can think of, you feel really thankful for, that has given you opportunities? There's some examples. You've talked about MDs, you've talked about different people, but is there any kind of one moment?
There's a couple of peers, maybe. If I think back to the first steps, it was my peers within sales that twitched my interest, and then having quite close friendships with certain individuals back then, started to learn different sales techniques, etc., etc. So it was, a lot of my training was not formalised. So it came from the team that we had around us at that time.
Yeah.
But then, if I think as my career has progressed, two people in particular during that time elevated me into roles that maybe they saw I was more ready for than perhaps I thought at the time. Right, so they were courageous enough to give me those opportunities. And that helped on my journey.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I think you've taken quite a natural progression. Obviously, starting in quality, you've kind of learnt the ropes. You've got your foot in the door in an industry that you're clearly very passionate about, and then you dipped your toe in the water, haven't you? In the more commercial elements. But I think from then on, your career has done what I would call quite a natural journey. A lot of people move different departments, move different businesses, but to have stayed, not just within the same business, but to stay sort of commercially, because obviously, and you are a very commercially minded MD, so you've just followed, right, what's next? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a good way to follow your career, isn't it? So.
And I think that during my time in quality, I did spend a lot of time in operations, understanding how sawing machines work, and the safety elements of operating cranes, etc. So that's given me a good grounding as I've progressed further on my career.
There's a lot more to quality than people think. It's not tick box exercise. You're kind of the heart of the business, aren't you, in quality? Because if it's not right, can't go out the door. So it's a simple fact. And the other thing we've talked about, and we've managed to do within your business, not in every department, but in some department, is we have attracted a lot more women to the metals industry, which is obviously a big area, isn't it? Within the sector as a whole, because it is seen as quite a masculine industry. Obviously, we've got women with metals. I know some of your staff are sort of involved in things like that. And how do you think you've made your business more attractive to bringing women in?
I think throughout my career, the commercial team has often had a fair representation of ladies within the business. Conscious effort. I mean, we want to be inclusive for all. And that is the message that we drive through our business. We want to attract the right people for the business, regardless of any factor. I think still for me, I would like to have a better mix in our warehousing facilities. We are still very, very male dominated on the shop floor. We need to look into why we're not attracting ladies to our business on the operational front. If we look at our split outside of operations, it's close to 50-50.
Yeah.
But because of the operational side, it's diluting that number.
I think it's as things change, like as automation's coming in, obviously
Yeah,
you've got Industry 4.0, you've got all different things that are making it easy from a capability point of view for women to come in, because obviously, there's things like strength and things like that, within those kind of roles, which is what the perception is. So I think it's about getting the perception out there that women can absolutely do these roles and can fit
yeah,
into these teams and be part of it. So it's, yeah, so we sorted it in commercial, we just need to sort it in operations now.
yeah.
Bless you. And what advice would you give? So obviously, like I say, we've talked about your career, we've talked about, Van Leeuwen as a business. So what advice would you give to somebody who's looking at you in your MD role? People have a perception, of kind of what's happened, but obviously people have heard today your story. What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking, that's where I want to be?
You've got to really want to be.
Okay.
I do. I'm very naturally ambitious. I always have been, and I want to take on the next role and the next role and the next role.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot of people who look at me maybe at the time in different roles and think I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
Because they see, I don't know, maybe the enjoyment that I have in that role, and think I could do it, and then they get there and it's not for them. So really, for me, question all the way along if you really want that extra responsibility. With responsibility comes all this white stuff on the side of my head.
I know. Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's not for everybody. But advice, if you do have the ambition, is work hard, apply yourself, and push yourself.
Yeah. No, and I think those are fantastic tips, and I would absolutely echo that. So what's next for you? What's on the horizon for you and Van Leeuwen?
I think if I look now, it's in my eyes anyway. It's not quite the twilight of my years. I'm still in my 40s, but it's become more about the journey of Van Leeuwen in the UK rather than my own personal journey now. So I've not given up. My focus is on developing my skill sets and the skill sets of the business to adapt to the changing environment and to make Van Leeuwen the best it possibly can be in the UK.
Fantastic. I think you're doing quite a lot of that, aren't you? Because I've had some conversations with Hannah about some of the programs that you're looking at for your leadership team. There's lots going on, isn't there? For them.
Yeah, we've really are during this year finally putting into practice a lot of the ideas that we've had in the past on people development. And across all levels of the business. So we've got our new starters, our apprentices, our graduate schemes.
Yeah.
But then we look at we've got what we call our Lions scheme, which is looking for potential leaders of the future or people who are really applying themselves in the current role and giving them an opportunity to have a broader look at the business, work on collaborative projects, so we get the benefits as well if they do a great job. But also, it's really the aim of the Lions program is to develop the leaders of the future. And then at the end of the year, we will have, at the beginning of the year, we had some group leadership training for our senior management team, including myself. Then we're rolling that down during December through into the next level of management within our business, and then the plan is to cascade that through the next level and the next level.
So it's proper hands-on training. It's proper opportunity that you're giving people that want in and want to be part of your business, basically, isn't it? So
no, very much, and it's and we're trying to formalise our approach. I think if I reflect, as I have done during this call, on my 29 years and 8 months, or 29 years and 10 months actually. Very little formalised training during that period of time, but it's been on-the-job training and pulling at people's experience. But the more we can try and ensure that the training I've had my accidental training development,
Yeah.
it is then passed on to the next generation. That is quite important to us.
No, fantastic. Well, you've gone from boy to man. You have. You know,
Well, yeah, I still like to consider myself a boy. Yeah.
Bless you. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Kris, and thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that, you know, just even little bits of your journey inspire other people.
No, thank you. Love nothing more than to talk about the business and myself. Cheers.
Amazing. All right, take care. Bye now. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. We hope that we have inspired you to take the next step in your journey. Today's episode was brought to you by Marshall Harmony, of which I am the founder and MD. We are on a mission to change the perception of recruitment by always placing people first within the manufacturing and engineering industries.